Financial protection for yourself, businesses, and properties remain a few of the major concerns for hardworking people like you. That is exactly why having insurance is so important. Don't we all wish for the ability to keep our expenses at the bare minimum while attaining maximum benefits? This is where KEK as your insurance broker comes in. Unfortunately, there is a common misconception that hiring a broker will drive up your insurance costs. This is just a myth. Let's debunk some of these insurance myths, shall we? 1. You have to pay insurance brokers for their services. That's not true. You do not have to pay any special fees when you use KEK as your insurance broker. Broker fees are fixed in premium quotations, and this is the way it is done all over the world. In fact, we rather work to reduce the premiums you have to pay due to our world-class negotiation skills. 2. You can do a better job managing your insurance. We at KEK Insurance Brokers are specialists who have in-depth understanding of the insurance market. We are experts in the insurance business, and we pass on this extensive knowledge and expertise to the client through competitive pricing, claims management, and the general administration of policies. So get insured today. Let KEK be the one to help you. You can reach us via social media handles or visit our offices at KEK Insurance Broking House, number 40/41 Senchi Street at Aviation Road, Airport Residential Area, Accra.
Give me 20 liters of fuel. Voila! There it is. 20 liters has been added to my tank. Triple confirmation on my odometer, the receipt, and on my app. And Soma GPS tracking service is able to alert you on dangerous driving incidents. And here is how.
Good afternoon, and thank you for making time this afternoon to join this workshop from the Stanford Seed Transformation Network. As you all know, as members of the network, we are regularly finding opportunities and spaces to gather around the table, both virtually and physically, and have conversations about our business and invite into our midst as well people with insights into various facets and aspects of the businesses that we're running. And the aim of all of this is to make sure that we're building businesses that are robust, that are transformational, and can conquer the world. This afternoon we have the privilege of having a conversation with the people from, someone from the Ghana Data Protection Commission, Mr. Quentin Akrobotu. He is one of the key people. We'll be introducing him in just a few minutes, but we will be talking about data protection and the import of that and impact of that as well on our various businesses, irrespective of the sector and industry that you are in. It is so important as businesses evolve and the business environment changes at such a rapid pace. Well, before we kick things off, we'd like to acknowledge our sponsors for this afternoon's program. It's KEK Insurance Brokers. They are the most trusted company that provides enhanced broking services locally and internationally. And this program is also made possible by the kindest courtesy of Villa Monticello Boutique Hotel, Ghana's award-winning premier boutique hotel that delivers world-class comforts with a personal touch. Yedent Agro Group of companies, producers of healthy and affordable cereal foods for Ghana, Africa, and beyond. Truly global firm. And Densu Industries, producers of high-quality disinfectants, floor polishes, cosmetics, and detergents, as well as Instruma GPS, a premier award-winning vehicle tracking and fleet management company, and Home Foods Processing and Cannery Limited, processing and packaging of various types of ethnic foods for the export markets. We truly appreciate your time joining us this afternoon for this program. We will not kick off though without a prayer. So I'd like to invite our able secretary, Madam Ifua Apenting, to kick things off for us with a prayer. Madam Ifua. I think, yeah. Get you. Yes.
All right, let's pray. Our Father, we just want to thank you for this opportunity to once again gather in your name. We thank you for Sstn and all the member companies under this banner. We thank you for this opportunity to be informed, educated, and add on to our knowledge. We pray, Lord, that you be with us every step along the way. Help us to have the information that will be very useful for us to help our companies to continue to prosper in whatever we do. We pray for insight, for understanding, for clarity in the presentation and in understanding. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Madam. All right. So just before we get into our first set of presentations, I'd just like to introduce everyone else in the room. Here at the Stamford Seed office for all of our network members. You know where we are coming to you from. My name is Eloy Amande, and I've got the privilege of moderating this afternoon's session. And I am, generally speaking, the communications director for the network. And in the room as well with us is Mr. President, the president of the network, Carl Richards, Madam Ifua Apenting, who just prayed for us, flanked by Mr. Apenting as well, and Shaibu Ali, the latest cohort ambassador, because our cohort is cohort 12, yeah. And then Mr. Kobe Asma, who is also in the room with us. Lydia, who's our events director, is also in the room, but I guess she's just stepped out. But to my right is Russell, and then also Quentin Apenting from the GDPC Acrobato. Sorry. Quentin Acrobato from the GDPC, who will be presenting to us shortly our main message for this afternoon. But before we hear from him, we would like to ask the President, Mr. Richards. I'll yield the seat to you, Mr. President, so that you can sit here and you can give us your opening remarks, why we're having this session, and then we'll take it up from here. Thank you, sir. Shall we?
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies. Thank you. So this is the second installment of Meet the Regulators, because we, in fact, would like to make sure that we are in conformance. Good afternoon, my esteemed members of the Business Network. I am honored to be here before you today as we prepare ourselves to discuss an important topic that affects our business: data protection. As we are transforming our businesses in the Ghanaian environment, it is essential that we prioritize the protection of our valuable data. Are we still on? Data breaches can have disastrous consequences for our businesses, including financial loss, damage to reputation, and legal repercussions. Moreover, the government of Ghana has set high standards for data protection, which requires businesses to adopt strict measures for data protection. This is statutory. So considering this, I urge all members of our network to review their data protection policies and procedures according to our interactions today. We need to ensure that our businesses are complying with relevant data protection regulations and have implemented adequate security measures to protect against those breaches. I also urge all members to take advantage of the other resources available to us. That is like our leadership labs, the conferences, workshops, and indeed events like this that our events committee is always so kind to put together for us. I'd also like to mention that as we gear up for our regional conference for members to showcase our businesses and promote transformation across the continent, it is important to ready ourselves. This upcoming conference will promote increased visibility and trade. It will be a 3-day business conference for trade and business stakeholders in West Africa to meet, understand the theme, Breaking Business Barriers with the Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement Acceleration. This will provide a platform for network businesses to build connections and relationships that will lead to increased trade for the continent. Must ensure along the way, again, that our businesses are adequately protected from data threats and breaches and compromise that could compromise our success. I urge you all to take advantage of this initiative from the network. So, thank you for your attention. I wish us all the best, and I hope that we get a lot of information. Thank you also to the team that has come to join us today. I hand over back to the master of ceremonies.
Financial protection for yourself, businesses, and properties remain a few of the major concerns for hardworking people like you. That is exactly why having insurance is so important. Don't we all wish for the ability to keep our expenses at the bare minimum while attaining maximum benefits? This is where KEK as your insurance broker comes in. Unfortunately, there is a common misconception that hiring a broker will drive up your insurance costs. This is just a myth. Let's debunk some of these insurance myths, shall we? 1. You have to pay insurance brokers for their services. That's not true. You do not have to pay any special fees when you use KEK as your insurance broker. Broker fees are fixed in premium quotations, and this is the way it is done all over the world. In fact, we rather work to reduce the premiums you have to pay due to our world-class negotiation skills. 2. You can do a better job managing your insurance. We at KEK Insurance Brokers are specialists who have in-depth understanding of the insurance market. We are experts in the insurance business, and we pass on this extensive knowledge and expertise to the client through competitive pricing, claims management, and the general administration of policies. So get insured today. Let KEK be the one to help you. You can reach us via social media handles or visit our offices at KEK Insurance Broking House, number 40/41 Senchi Street at Aviation Road, Airport Residential Area, Accra.
Give me 20 liters of fuel. Voila! There it is. 20 liters has been added to my tank. Triple confirmation on my odometer, the receipt, and on my app. Soma GPS tracking service is able to alert you on dangerous driving incidents. And here is how.
We thank you very much for making the decision to take time of your work week to join us on this session time with the regulators here at Stamford C. So we also like to thank our sponsors for making this session possible, but would thank you, Mr. President, for the short and sweet address that set the tone for what is coming up next. So according to our agenda, the reason why we've all gathered on the Zoom and in the office here is to understand the intricacies of data protection and what the law has to say about that. So the theme for this afternoon session is ensuring compliance, meeting the requirements of the Data Protection Commission. And all week, well, the previous week and this week, we've been building up to this session by sharing nuggets of information on our WhatsApp page and getting everyone into the headspace. So this is the moment. We're just about to ask Mr. Quentin Akroboto, who's the Director of Regulatory and Compliance at the Data Protection Commission, to expand for us what the law is, what our position is or should be as businesses and as individuals, and what rights and protections the Act affords us. Let's put our hands together, gentlemen, for Mr. Akroboto. Thank you, sir.
Hello, good afternoon. So, as I have been introduced, my name is Quentin Akroboto, the Director of Regulatory and Compliance at the Data Protection Commission. And today I am representing the Executive Director, Madam Patricia Idusa-Ipuku, who is not able to join us today because she's been engaged in another important assignment. So, as Amanda mentioned, the theme for today's workshop is actually on ensuring compliance, meeting the requirement of the Data Protection Act, Act 843. So let me run us through the outline of the presentation. We'll look at an introduction, why we need to even have this discussion at this time. We'll look at the data protection principles, where I'll dwell a little bit longer. Then we'll also look at the obligations and the importance of all this to the data controller. So, why data protection? Day in, day out, new digital tools and technologies are introduced to enhance business processes. Today, both demand and supply of goods and services, talk of food, talk of clothing, education, health, banking, insurance, everything is gone mobile and actually virtual. And whilst we digitize our processes, one commodity that comes very common to all our business processes is personal data and the privacy of what individuals. So personal data is central to our business processes and essential to our operational and administrative effectiveness. The reason we must at all costs protect personal data and the privacy of individuals. Data protection, we say, is not optional. As the president of Stamford Seed Transformation Network mentioned earlier, it is mandatory, it is statutory. You can't negotiate it. Regardless of how personal data comes into your custody, whether direct from individuals, whether indirect, whether in the public, wherever you're getting it from, you have the mandate to ensure, you have the duty of care to ensure you protect the privacy of the individual and also their personal data. So we have peer regulators like the Bank of Ghana, We have agencies that we are collaborating with to ensure data protection becomes an eligibility criteria. Individuals also, as a result of the work we are doing in terms of awareness, are becoming very much aware and knowledgeable in their rights, and they insist on it. The reason it is important we put in place measures as businesses, as individuals, as organizations, institutions, to ensure privacy is respected and personal data is protected. So the Data Protection Act in 2012 was passed into law and came into effect 10th May 2012. And the objective was to set out the rules and principles governing the collection, use, disclosure, and care of personal data of information or information by a data controller or a data processor. I'll take time to explain some of these terminologies. So the mission of the Commission: we are an agency under the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization with the responsibility for ensuring accountable processing of personal data of all living individuals in compliance with legal requirements as a regulator in Ghana. And our vision is to protect the privacy of the individual and personal data by regulating people, processes, and technology. Let me explain this. When we say we protect the privacy of individuals, that is not to say your personal data as individuals is kept by the Commission. I have been asked on several occasions, what are we doing with personal data? Your personal data does not sit with the Commission. It sits with institutions, entities, organizations that we share our information with. And it is the role of the Commission to ensure those who hold this personal data process it in compliance with the provisions of the Act. All right, just to clarify that. Okay, so our function is to implement and monitor compliance with the provisions of the Act, make the administrative arrangement we consider appropriate for the discharge of our duties, investigate any complaint under this Act, and determine it in the manner we consider fair, and also to keep and maintain the data protection register that was created by the Act in section 46, that every institution or every entity must register with the Commission. So we'll look at what this actually means. So let me take time to explain some of the common technologies in our work. So when we say personal data is any information that can be used to identify an individual, or any piece of information, additional information that can be used to identify an individual. So we have your name, your age, your IP address of the machines or the phones we use, the phone numbers. These are all personal data. In fact, your race, your blood sample, your health status, all forms part of your personal data. Now, if I should say Kofi Mensah, someone will say Kofi Mensah is someone's name, all right. But we could have 2 or 3 Kofi Mensahs in this gathering. That is why the definition says that with additional information. So we could have 2 people or 3 people with the same name. But immediately I say Kofi Mensah, who is wearing so and so dress. With that additional information, you are able to identify the individual I'm referring to. So personal data simply is anything that can be used to identify an individual. It forms part of what? Their personal data. And once you are holding it, you must ensure you hold it in compliance with the provisions of the Act, which we'll be looking at under the principles. Then consent. The whole issue about data protection is on consent. For you to collect someone's personal data, for you to use it, process it, store it, whatever you want to do with it, if you don't have consent, you cannot. Consent simply is any freely given, informed, specific, unambiguous indication of the data subject wishes in agreement of how you want to process their personal data. Any freely given, informed, specific, and unambiguous indication of the data subject in agreement to the processing of their personal data. What this actually means is that before 2018, consent could be verbal. But as it stands today, after 2018, consent must be specific, it must be unambiguous, and it must be verifiable. It must be evidential. So if you say you have consent from someone to collect or process their personal data, you must evidence it. If you are not able to evidence it, should there be a breach and you are taken to court, you cannot defend it. It means you didn't seek the consent of the individual. And if we follow news on social media, you will get to know how big shots like Facebook, Google, even airlines are fined internationally for breaching personal data of individuals. So this is very key. Consent is very key. Of course, there may be instances where you cannot see the consent of an individual. We'll look at the conditions you need to meet to be able to process personal data. Then we have data subjects. Data subjects are living individuals who are the heart or the center of any piece of information that you find. So I explained personal data to mean any information that can be used to identify an individual. So that individual whose personal data we are talking of is the data subject. Then we have a data controller who is any individual or business, either alone or jointly with other persons, determine how personal data is processed. So you are a business, you are an entity, either alone or jointly with other businesses. You determine how personal data within your organization should be processed. You are a data controller. So within your organization, all the people you are working with, within your HR, your finance department, within your operational unit, they all form part of your controllership. Of course, the name we give to them, I mean those you work with within your organization, they are data recipients. Data recipients. But the institution becomes the data controller because the institution determines how personal data should be processed. Then we have data processor. Data processors are people we give contract to process personal data on our behalf. So I made a distinction that you could have an HR working for an institution. They are or processing personal data for the institution. They are not processors. They are data recipients. A data processor processes personal data on behalf of a data controller with written instructions. So they don't determine how it should be done, the data controller give them written instructions as to how they should process. And when their contract is ended, everything reverts back to the data controller. So we have insurance companies who contract agents to sell or sell their policies on their behalf. These individuals sell on written instructions. They become data processors on behalf of the insurance companies. We have Momo vendors working on behalf of the telcos. We have agency banking for the banks. They've created small vendor points doing certain banking services on their behalf. These are all processes on their behalf, and they process on written instruction from the institution or the data controller. Then we have processing. Processing is any activity, whether electronic or manual, that you render on personal data. So it includes, or let me just put it this way. Did you see the personal data? You have processed it. Did you store it? You have processed it. Did you share it? You have processed it. Did you delete it? You have processed it. Any activity, in fact, alteration, adopting it, whatever, so long as it's in your custody, whatever you do to it, you have processed. Did you even capture it with your CCTV camera? You have processed it. So processing cuts across anything that you render on the personal data. So this will be our working terminologies for today. All right, so application of data protection principles. This is where, as data controllers or ultimate decision makers, we should be interested in. In terms of compliance, this is what it's all about. For you to comply with the Data Protection Act, simply it's about you processing personal data in compliance with the 8 principles of data protection. All right, so we are going to, let me just run you through them. We'll take time to look at it. We have accountability. Data controllers must demonstrate accountability in processing personal data. We'll look at what accountability actually entails. You must demonstrate, or you must show that you have lawfulness to process the personal data that you hold. You must have a lawful basis for processing personal data. You must specify the purpose for which you are collecting or processing personal data. If in the future the personal data that you hold, you so determined to use it for another purpose, you want to check if that purpose, new purpose, is compatible with the initial purpose of collection. You must always ensure the quality of personal data is protected. Where it is outdated, you must make room for people to update their information. It must be accurate, up to date, and the sanctity and integrity of it must always be maintained. Openness. Data controllers must demonstrate openness to their processing. The data that you collect, let the individual, I mentioned earlier, you can collect personal data directly from the individual or indirectly from an open source. However you are getting it, let the owners of this personal data, the data subject, let them know what you are processing their personal data for. For what purpose are you collecting it? How long do you intend to keep it? Whom are you going to share it with? And if you don't have need of it again, how do you intend to dispose of it? you must be open, transparent to the data subject about all this. Data security safeguards. We must, or data controllers must put frameworks and technical measures in place to ensure that there is enough security for the personal data that we hold, so that they don't fall in the hands of the wrong persons or unauthorized persons. And even if it does, the harm should be very minimal. Then lastly, data subject participation. We must give data subjects the opportunity to participate in the way we process their personal data. This is what the law says. And now let's go into what the individual principles actually mean. So Section 18 of the Data Protection Act at 843 requires of data controllers to demonstrate accountability by, one, ensuring that the processing of personal data does not infringe on the privacy rights of data subjects. It doesn't infringe on their rights. So it tells us that data subjects have rights. I explain data subject to be any individual, living individual, at the center of the information we hold, the data we hold on them. They are the data subjects. And they have rights. They have the right to be informed. They have the right to give consent or withdraw their consent. They have the right to amend whatever information you hold on them. They have the right to stop you from processing their personal data. They have the right to compensation. They have the right to object to any processing that is done with an automated system. All right, so accountability requires of data controllers to process personal data in a way that does not infringe on the privacy rights of the individual or data subjects. It also requires that you must have a lawful basis or a reasonable basis for processing personal data. So the business you are doing, do you have the legal backing to do the business you are doing? Do you have the legal backing to even collect the personal data? So you are a bank, you are an institution. Yes, you want to collect personal data. The personal data you are collecting, does the law that supervises your industry agree to the fact that you must collect that particular information that you are collecting? The law may allow you to collect some data, but do you go beyond that law to collect other data that is not lawful? Accountability is saying that you must demonstrate lawfulness. You must also ensure that when you are processing personal data within the confines of Ghana, you are mindful of other nationals' personal data that you may be processing, and you must process that in compliance with where these individuals originate from, the law that protect their personal data as well. So you're a business, you have collected personal data that you are using. You must know the source of the personal data. If they are Ghanaians, if they are not Ghanaians, which laws you must apply to safeguard their personal information. And there's a network. We have NATPA, the network of African Data Protection Authorities, that ensure that even when the law, just as I mentioned, in Ghana here, if you are processing personal data and it happens that the data you are processing belongs to a foreign national, there are these treaties or conventions that are used to ensure whether you are processing in compliance with the other jurisdiction or not. We have the Malabo Convention, that churns out common data protection principles that must be obliged with. Then you need to register with the Data Protection Commission under accountability. You must demonstrate accountability by ensuring that you register with the Data Protection Commission. Section 46 establishes the register. Section 53 makes it a crime to process personal data without registering with the Data Protection Commission. And Section 56 spells out the sanctions that goes with not registering but processing personal data. So it is important as data controllers, as ultimate and key decision makers, we ensure we are in compliance with the provisions of the Act, and especially accountability. We demonstrate accountability in our processing. Then the principle number 2 talks of lawfulness of processing. As I mentioned earlier, you must have a lawful basis for processing personal data. And having collected it, the question is, did you seek the consent of the individual before collecting it? Or because you are the ultimate decision maker, you are the data controller, you are rendering your service, so you think you just need to collect the personal data? I can mention to you here that there are institutions out there making data protection, making personal data a condition of service. So you are selling an item, I'm paying for it. I walk into your shop, we exchange, I pick your product, I pay. What is the business collecting my personal data in that? And if I refuse giving you my personal data, you deny serving me. That goes against Section 82 of the Act, making collecting of personal data a condition of service. That must not be. So we are still on lawfulness of processing. You must seek consent. And as I mentioned, data subjects have rights, privacy rights. They have the right to give consent, and they have the right to withdraw their consent. Where they say no, it is no. Now, I mentioned earlier that where it is difficult or it is not possible for the data controller to secure the consent of data subjects, there are some conditions that you must meet to still go ahead and process personal data. So we have justification of processing. 1, the processing must be necessary for the purpose of a contract to which the data subject is a party. So it could be a contract of employment. You have come to be employed, and there are certain processes that you must be taken through, which will require certain information to be taken from you. That is in your interest. So you must at all costs give your consent. Even if you don't, so long as you accept the offer, it's just as saying that you have given your consent. So the law says that so long as it is necessary for the purpose of a contract to which the data subject is a party. If the processing is authorized by law, so let me say during the COVID-19 era, or let's say 2020, it became necessary for people to wear nose masks, and it also became necessary for the personal data of individuals to be collected at certain gatherings to check those who were there at a particular time, so that if there is a case of infection, the people could be contacted. So it became a requirement for especially churches to at all costs get the details of people who attended service at a particular time. It is a requirement by the law. So your consent cannot be sought in this. It will be collected. I know you have questions. You can note them down. When I'm done, we'll take time to answer all of them. And also, when the processing is to protect the legitimate interest of the data subject, and where it is necessary for the proper performance of a statutory duty, just as I've explained, when it's also necessary to pursue the legitimate interest of the data controller or a third party to whom the data is supplied. So where you have a legitimate interest as a data controller or as the business, and it becomes difficult for you to contact your data subjects, you have legitimate interest. What the provisions the Commission has made is you contact the Commission to give you that consent, because the Commission speaks for the public. The Commission speaks for individuals who are Ghanaians. So where you have a legitimate business interest, for which reason you cannot contact all your individual data subjects to seek their consent, yet there is the need for you to share that personal data you are holding on them with another entity. There is the need for you to delete it. There is the need for you to maybe share it with another jurisdiction, or there is the need for you to use it for another purpose. You can't contact all of them. You come to the Commission. There is something we call privacy impact assessment. So you do a privacy impact assessment on this new purpose or new processing, and you bring it to the Commission for clearance. So we will stand in the stead of all these individual data subjects, assess your processes, all the measures you have put in place, all the risks that you have identified, and how you intend to mitigate them. The Commission will review all this. Where it is not good enough, recommendations will be made, and when it is okay, a clearance letter is given to you to process the personal data without necessarily contacting all your data subjects. Now, we are still on lawfulness of processing. Data obtained must be necessary, relevant, and not excessive. We are talking about what? Minimality. You don't collect personal data in anticipation of a future use. You collect what you need. You collect what you need to use today for the purpose for which you want the information, not for a future use. It shouldn't be excessive. As I mentioned earlier, your regulator must have given you the room to collect some amount of information. You don't go beyond that room. So you have institutions, I don't want to mention the individuals, but you have institutions. Okay, I will not mention the data controller, but let me say you have hotels. That goes beyond your personal information, like your name, and they ask about your marital status before giving you a room accommodation. Yeah, they do. They go to the extent of asking your shoe size. Yes. That is how interesting it can get. So sorry. All right, so it is not every information that you can collect. You collect what is necessary for the purpose of the service that you want to render. And as I mentioned, you don't collect in anticipation of a future use. Retention of records. How long do you keep the information you are collecting? We have industry standards. Banks may have 7 years. After you no longer have need of the information, after you have parted ways of the data subject, you can keep it for a minimum of perhaps 5 or 7 years. Beyond that, you must dispose of it. Yes. And even how you dispose of it is regulated. You don't just dispose of, because you must dispose of it with evidence. You don't say, yes, I have disposed of it, but you still have trace of locating it. So your disposal must be evidential. So we have specialized entities that goes into what? Either manual or electronic data disposal. So you don't just respond to a data subject, oh, we held this information on you, but we have deleted it. No. How you deleted it, how you got it deleted, must be communicated. Specification of purpose. The third principle requires that as you collect personal data, I mentioned that data subjects have rights. They have the right to be informed. You need to specify this purpose for which you are collecting the personal data, and it must be specific, explicitly defined, no ambiguity. I am collecting the personal data for this purpose. You don't say you are collecting the personal data for delivery, and the next moment you are marketing a product. And that will lead us to principle number 4. That will not be compatible with the initial purpose of what? Collection. So your processing must not deviate from the specific purpose for which you collected the personal data. I'm running out of time, so I'll be a bit faster in my explanation. Then we have quality of information. As I mentioned earlier, the CIA triad must always be respected. Complete, accurate, and up to date. It must be confidential. The integrity of it must always be what? Protected. And it must be available when there is the need of it. I mentioned that data subject must be allowed to participate in the way you process their personal information. And when we get to there, you realize that they can come back to you for their personal information. So when it is necessary, it must be available. The data subject must not come to you and it is the issue of it cannot be found or it's been mistakenly deleted. Deleted how? It's my personal information. I gave it to you. I have the right to take it back and instruct you to delete it from your system. Principle number 6, openness. As I mentioned, your processing must be transparent. How much of information you collect, what you are collecting it for, whom you intend to share it with, how long you intend to keep it or store it, if you intend to dispose of it, how you are going to do it. As a data subject, if I have any grievances concerning how you are processing my personal data, how I can contact you, whom I will, the one to contact within your organization to even complain to, you must be open about all this, and this must be published on your website. It should not be difficult to find. It must be open, transparent. Where there are breaches, of course, there is no security system that is 100%. There may be 1 or 2 breaches, but the law requires that where there is a breach, as soon as you become aware of this breach, you notify the commission, the Data Protection Commission, and the data subjects involved, so that if there are any remedial action that the data subjects can take to secure their personal information, they take it. There's a typical example that happened last year, somewhere in September, but I don't want to talk about it because it will take us, so many questions will come from it. But it happened, and the data subjects were not duly informed. All of us here were affected by it. If you cast your mind back, and the period I mentioned, you know the institution. It's a public institution. Data security safeguard number 7. So, as data controllers, the Act requires that we implement up-to-date technology. Let us not go far when I say up-to-date technology. Even the antivirus that we use in our system, is it a cracked one or is an original one? A lot of ultimate decision makers do not like putting money into antivirus. They think that, oh, the IT guys know how to go about it. They can always get an antivirus. But it's a cracked one. It is not supported anywhere. And a cracked antivirus does not give you full protection. It means you have antivirus, but you are still not protected. Certain attacks can come true. Appropriate physical and technological security. Appropriate technology. When we say appropriate technology, we are looking at the size of the institution or the entity or the organization, your capacity to afford, your capacity or your ability to afford the technology that we are talking about. So, as a large data controller, if you are to implement a technology to secure personal data, you don't go for the wayside. You go for the one that has all the parties, the credential that you may require to use. If you're a large organization and you are using technology that is small, that is not appropriate. When I say small, I mean that does not meet the industry standard. It is not good enough to protect the privacy of the individual. So appropriateness looks at your size as an institution and your ability or capacity to afford the technology. And all these are audited. Then we also speak about operational how do you call it? The operational effectiveness. Operational effectiveness. The staff we operate with. What background checks do we do on them before we even engage them? When we accept CVs and all that, do we go behind these individuals to check their background? And how do we even check the background? We only call a referee. Do you know so and so person? They say, yes, we know them. Okay, thank you. That is not good enough. For a background check, where or which institution the individual is coming from, you want to check why they even left there. What marks they left behind before leaving there, before you engage them. There are a lot of things that go into this. So operational effectiveness, appropriate technology, physical security, all this must be put in place. People we put at our security, sometimes we trust them so much. Even the cleaners we engage. In data protection, one of the people that poses a higher threat or risk to processing are cleaners, because they have the keys to our offices. Sometimes we lock our offices without locking the drawer, and they open the office, the drawer key is on, and they sweep. If they are compromised, they can leak out sensitive information. It is very key that we are mindful of the people we engage as security, as cleaners. Then lastly, data subject participation. I mentioned earlier, data subject must be allowed to participate in the way we process their personal data. We must allow data subjects to update the information we have on them. So you realize that from time to time, banks come back to us asking us to come and update our information with them. It is the right thing to do, because for some of us, we operate HR systems that people update their information, but we still hold or refer to them with the initial information they signed on with us with, without updating it. And we have people in our system who have upgraded themselves, but we still refer to them with the old titles and all that. All this goes into describing their personal data. So we must give them room to participate in how we process their personal data. Where they want their information deleted, give them the opportunity to have it deleted. Where they want it amended, give them the opportunity to have it amended. Where they think they have parted ways with the institution and they need their information from you back, or whatever information you are holding on them, they require of it, we must, through something we call data subject access request, make it available unto them. And when it's as a fee, the law says that it should be reasonable. If you have to charge a data subject for giving them back the information you hold on them, the act says it should be reasonable, not too much. All right, so let us look at the obligations of data controllers. So we've looked at the 8 principles. What will be the obligations of a data controller or a key decision maker? As I mentioned, Section 46 of the Act requires that a data controller registers with the Data Protection Commission before they processes personal data. And Section 53 makes it a crime to process personal data without registering with the Commission. And as I mentioned, by defining processing, there is no institution registered in Ghana that has not qualified to be a data controller. Because if processing includes seeing the personal data, then you will agree with me, there is no business in Ghana here that does not see the personal data of people. It could be your staff, it could be your clients or your customers. So every business must register with the Data Protection Commission. And it is the reason I mentioned earlier that the Commission with other regulators are trying to make data protection an eligibility criteria, so that even before you register your business, you will be directed to come and get a license from the Commission before you are registered. Or even before you renew your license with any other regulator, you'll be directed to come back to the Commission to get your license renewed before you are renewed with your regulator. And Section 50 of the Act requires that every 2 years you renew your registration or you renew your license. So the license that is given to you expires every 2 years. In 2020, October, and 2021, March, there was a 6-month amnesty given by the Commission. So all data controllers who took advantage of that amnesty registered without paying arrears. If there is an institution today that did not take advantage of that, before and existed before the passage of the act, it will be calculated for you to pay up to date. Because the Data Protection Act is the only act that takes retrospective effect. So regardless of when your business was registered, either before the act was passed, you are still supposed to comply, or after the act was passed, you are still supposed to comply. So the obligation of the data controller is to register with the Commission and renew every 2 years. Appoint a data protection supervisor. Section 58 says that you must appoint a data protection supervisor to assist you in your compliance journey. Because there is a number of activities, that go into remaining compliant with the Commission. And there are some responsibilities the Commission places, or the Act places, on a data protection supervisor. So what the Commission actually advises, for large and medium data controllers, you need to have a data protection supervisor in-house. For small data controllers, you can, if you can afford, you can have a data protection supervisor. Otherwise, it is not mandatory for you to have. Implement appropriate technical and organizational measures, as I explained earlier, Section 28, under the principle of security safeguards. Implement data protection policies. You must have retention policies, how long you intend to keep or store data. You must have a data protection policy. You must have a security policy. You must have a privacy statement published on your website demonstrating your level of accountability when it comes to processing of personal data. You must give instruction to your processors who process personal data on your behalf. And you must notify the Commission and data subject where you experience data protection breaches. What are the importance of registration? Or what are the importance of being compliant with the Data Protection Act? Registering with the Commission is mandatory. It is not negotiable. And as I mentioned earlier, data protection is not an option. It is mandatory, regardless of how the personal data came into your custody. So long as you have it, you must protect it. If you cannot protect it, don't even collect it. Secondly, it is your first effort towards accountability. Registering with the Commission is your first effort towards accountability. And as a matter of fact, it comes to defense for you in the court of law that you demonstrated accountability by registering with the Commission. And there are instances where the Commission will join you in your court cases to defend you. That is where you are compliant. Avoid prosecution and fines. As I mentioned, there are sanctions and there are fines that goes with it. Even for offenses that do not have any fine, Section 95 gives a general penalty of 5,000 penalty units for breaches that do not come with any fine. Then we have credibility or reputational loss. And for me, this is even bigger, because for some of us, 5,000 penalty unit is just like 60,000. For your institution, it's small. But it goes beyond the fine. It will be published. And you lose credibility with your client, especially where you have foreign clients. Data protection outside Ghana, especially in Europe, is big. And as I mentioned, data subjects on daily basis are becoming aware and knowledgeable in their rights. And some have started testing the law. As we speak, we have more than 3 to them as well. So you want to avoid all this by registering with the Commission and remaining compliant. So this will be your roadmap to data protection accountability. Appoint a data protection supervisor, as I mentioned. Book a certified data protection supervisor's training if they are not trained. Your data protection supervisors should be trained. There's a criteria that they must meet. Complete your basic privacy assessment. Do a gap analysis within your organizational setup to know the level of appreciation of data protection. Identify data protection risk. Document your top privacy risk, and put in place mitigation measures to these risks that you have identified. Establish a privacy program to be championed by the data protection supervisor, and then prepare for renewal every 2 years. And when you come for renewal, that is where the Commission will test your compliance level. But there will be an audit to ensure you have put in place the right measures to secure the sanctity of the personal data that you hold. And lastly, when we say a data controller is in good standing, exactly what do we mean? A data controller who is in good standing has registered with the Commission and has a valid license, not an expired one. An expired license is no registration, but the registration does not keep dead certificates, only valid certificates. You must document and make accessible. Okay, let me talk about data protection first. Just as I mentioned, once you register, your next stage is to train a data protection supervisor. If you don't have one, you can train one, and you can train as many as you can or as you can afford, because you will get to know the work of remaining compliant is big. And where your organization has a wider network across the country, you want not an individual, but more than an individual to champion data protection across the country on your behalf. Then you want to remain compliant. As I mentioned, always remain compliant. Then lastly, document your policies and make them accessible. As I mentioned, publicize your privacy statement. Your privacy statement documents what personal data you collect, what you collect it for, all the people that you intend to share it with, how you store it, where you store it, how long you store it, and you have to dispose of it, how you dispose of it. All this will be in your privacy statement, demonstrating your accountability to the 8 principles of data protection. And lastly, where there are grievances by your data subjects, how they can contact you to have their grievances resolved. All this must be publicized to demonstrate your accountability. So for someone to be in good standing, register with the Commission, have a data protection supervisor, remain compliant all the time, document your policies, and make them accessible by your data subjects. And this is where I will end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Financial protection for yourself, businesses, and properties remain a few of the major concerns for hardworking people like you. That is exactly why having insurance is so important. Don't we all wish for the ability to keep our expenses at the bare minimum while attaining maximum benefits? This is where KEK as your insurance broker comes in. Unfortunately, there is a common misconception that hiring a broker will drive up your insurance costs. This is just a myth. Let's debunk some of these insurance myths, shall we? 1. You have to pay insurance brokers for their services. That's not true. You do not have to pay any special fees when you use KEK as your insurance broker. Broker fees are fixed in premium quotations, and this is the way it is done all over the world. In fact, we rather work to reduce the premiums you have to pay due to our world-class negotiation skills. 2. You can do a better job managing your insurance. We at KEK Insurance Brokers are specialists who have in-depth understanding of the insurance market. We are experts in the insurance business, and we pass on this extensive knowledge and expertise to the client through competitive pricing, claims management, and the general administration of policies. So get insured today. Let KEK be the one to help you. You can reach us via social media handles or visit our offices at KEK Insurance Broking House, number 40/41 Senchi Street at Aviation Road, Airport Residential Area, Accra.
Give me 20 liters of fuel. Voila! There it is. 20 liters has been added to my tank. Triple confirmation on my odometer, the receipt, and on my app. And Soma GPS tracking service is able to alert you on dangerous driving incidents. And here is how.
Thank you very much and for staying with us, and this has been a really interesting session. Sir, I would like to say thank you for the presentation and taking us through what has been the last 1 hour. Well, someone remarked that they died and they came back, you know, out of fear and everything else that's going on. But the import of this session is to make sure that we break all of that down and democratize the conversation as much as possible. So by the flow of activities that we have, we'll be doing some Q&As. So we'll crave your indulgence that, you know, we'll take a few questions before we proceed. So I don't know how we're going to do this, whether we'll go online first or we'll come into the in-studio first. I think we'll do in-studio first, and then we'll proceed to go out. So who wants to go first? Well, Mr. Pinting, I'm going to hand you the microphone.
I have just two basic questions. Number one, embassies have data on our height, and I think sometimes our weight, the color of our eyes, special marks on us, and your mother and your father, and so you are so specifically identified. How safe are we? One. Number two, how sure that are we that somebody won't buy that information from their database and use it? And your response at the point was that, well, it's because they want to be able to offer a service for you for visa. But my point is that when I also travel, the country in which I'm going, they will get money because I was spent, and therefore it's not just a one part of the whole thing wanting a service, but they also benefit by admitting into their country. That's one. Number two, we have staff. We work with staff. We collect their date of birth. We collect even the number of children they have and things, so that we can build a data around who we are and the kind of impact we have. How safe are we in all this exercise? I would like to hear something from you. I mean, so that nobody prosecutes, you know.
Thank you, Mr. Appleton. Before you answer, Quinton, we'll take one more question so that it will just be a batch. All right, Shaibu in the room has a question as well.
Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. I have two questions. So in your presentation, you put so much emphasis on consent. Now, what form is this consent supposed to take? Is it supposed to be a written letter or what? Because I sell insurance. If I come to you to sell you motor insurance, must I write a letter separately that I'm going to collect your data and then you sign on it that you have agreed? Or what form is it? Because you said it must be evidential and verifiable, if I remember right. That is number one. Then number two, in your definition of data subject, your emphasis was on any living individual. Does it mean that we can handle data about dead people anyhow? Thank you.
All I can say is dead men don't talk. All right, thank you. Quinton, please, if you could take this first.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pinton, and then my brother Shaibu. On the first issue, on the embassies and the information they collect from us, as I mentioned in my presentation, and the information that is collected by data controllers, where they are not able to secure consent, the other conditions that they must meet to be able to process. I mentioned that where the processing is in interest of the data subject, and it becomes very difficult for the data controller to secure consent, they can rely, or the data controller can rely on the commission. Now, the information the embassies collect is actually in the legitimate interest of the individual securing a travel visit to the country. In terms of the benefits the individual, the data controller derives from your visit, that is not in scope. But the personal data they collect is actually supposed to assist them, profile you properly, to be able to allow you to visit their country. At least you should be known as entering in their country. That is the essence of all the information they collect from, and where there is the need for you to be repatriated, the persons that need to be called, or if you have an emergency, all the persons that need to be contacted will be the reason why the embassy will require certain information from you. On how safe we are with the information that they collect, so what the commission does is, as I mentioned, once you are registered, we insist that you have a data protection supervisor who will assist you in your compliance journey. And in every 2 years, the commission audits your institution to ensure you are complying. So you submit a compliance report, which is reviewed. Where we have issues, we get back to you. Until the commission is satisfied with your processing, you cannot renew your license. And as I mentioned, we are now working with other regulators to ensure entities that are not in good standing or are not in compliance with the commission, you will not have your license renewed with the commission, and so you will not have your license with the other regulators also what renewed. So it becomes a collective effort to ensure people comply. So the embassies will comply so long as all this is. That is a good question. Oh, sorry.
No,
I'm asking whether the embassies are registered with you.
Yes, so there is a dispensation as to how embassies are regulated. It is different from how data controllers are regulated because, as you may all be aware, an embassy is another country in your country. Yes. Once you enter the embassy, it's a different ball game once again. You are in another country. So there is a different regime in regulating them. That does not require them specifically registering with the Commission, but they are still checked.
All right, thank you. So
that is
there was another.
Yes. That is not all. Then you also mentioned, Mr. Penton, that the staff information that you hold on your staff and maybe clients. You want to know how you secure them or how other data controllers secure them. Because you as a data controller hold this information, and the Act under security safeguards expect that you put in place policies and organizational measures to ensure this information that we hold on our staff are well protected. So it's a responsibility on the data controller. And as I mentioned, if you cannot protect, don't collect. Once you collect, you must put in place measures to ensure it is always confidential, available when it is necessary, and the integrity of it is always maintained. Thank you very much. Now, on consent, yes, I placed a lot of emphasis on consent. And you're asking what form should it take? I mentioned that consent must be evidential prior to 2018. I can seek your consent by asking you, oh, I want to collect your information to do A, B, and C. Are you okay with it? Yes. But today, it has to be evidential. That yes, you're saying must be documented. If tomorrow there is a breach and we want to check whether you actually got consent from the individual, you should be able to show it. So if you are downloading an app, I believe we have all downloaded apps on our phones. There is a state that you get to. They will ask you, they want to have access to your photos, your contacts, your media. Do you agree? If you say no, what happens? You are not able to proceed. That is evidential consent. They want you to consent. Otherwise, you can't proceed. So, consent must be what? Unambiguous. Now, when you are completing a banking account opening form in a bank, there are a lot of things that are written. Very eligible. You can read it. But it gets to some portions of it. Very, very tiny. Very, very tiny. Unfortunately, that is where you have issues like you consent to the bank debiting your account, where there is another institution requiring information about you. And if the bank have to provide that information, they are telling you that your account will be debited. Whatever cost that the bank will incur in supplying that information, your account will be debited. But it is written very small. It doesn't even look attractive to you to read. And you go and sign everything. You're giving your consent. What we tell the banks is that that consent is not explicit enough. Because the data subject was not attracted to even read it. So you have, in most cases, people do not read it, but they still go ahead and sign. Where you have a clearance letter to collect from the Commission and we have to audit your account opening form, that is where we'll get you. We'll tell you that is not explicit enough. So consent, as we say, must be evidential. It must be what? Unambiguous, eligible, informed, specific. I don't know if I've answered you on that. Then, About living individuals, yes, the scope of personal data, or the scope of personal data that Act 843 regulates, is the personal data of living individuals. There may be other regulations or laws that govern the processing of data of the dead, but Act 843 is data on living individuals. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Quentin. So we've got, we're asking for everybody else that has that question to type that into the chat room online, and we will share that with everybody else. So we've got a few questions that have come in. Akwasi Sapon from UTLE Foundation says, very insightful presentation. So he's thanking SEED and DPC for that. He says, what applies to a data controller must also apply to a processor of personal data as stated in the Act. COSIS software engineering team says, very educative. We at COSIS and software engineering company advocated for this kind of forums to help data controllers better understand the data protection area. Then Juliet says, thank you for the presentation. What are some of the ways of disposing of data? So please, we'll come to you for a response to that. And then he's also asking, ITF is also asking, can we as a company hire the services of a data controller firm that is registered by the DPC to manage or control our data?
Please, I didn't get that.
He's asking whether they can hire the services of a third party data controller firm that is registered by the DPC to manage or control their data. And then the final question on there is, what is the time frame or duration for organizations to submit their compliance reports to the DPC in a year? And how many times in a year is it required for an organization to do that?
Again.
Question is, what is the time frame or duration to submit their compliance report to the DPC? That's the first leg. Then the second leg is, what is the frequency of that action that they are supposed to take? You know, is it required for an organization to do that, and how many times in a year they are supposed to do that particular? And then the other question there is, how does the data protection laws of Ghana compare with the GDPR? I suppose it's talking about the UK or the US regulations. This is from Anita Osei-Wusu. And then Tony is asking, how do we track the source of a data breach? From Anthony. Anthony is in your office, Shaibu. So we've got quite an engaged audience online. Well, Quentin,
Yeah.
if you can take us away.
All right. Thank you very much. So first of all, you're asking if you want to. You're asking to know how personal data can be disposed of.
Yes.
Yes.
The appropriate ways.
Okay. So it depends on what personal data we are looking at, or the form of the personal data, because it could be electronic and it could be manual. So we have shredding. We have shredding, and when we say shredding, we have shredding machines that can be used to dispose of personal data, and you evidence it that on this date, in the presence of so and so persons, this happened. It could be auditors or either internal or external auditors that will witness the evidence of what destruction or disposal of the data. We have data disposal entities like Top Archive. We have PRAD. We have other ones as well that go into electronic disposal of what personal data, and they will evidence it for you, ensure that the deletion or the destruction of the information is actually done and cannot be tracked on any device. No, not in any magnetic field. So that is, we have shredding. You can equally burn it, and that also must be witnessed and evidenced. All right. So let's look at the issue on hiring the services of a data controller. Actually, you don't hire the services of a data controller if you are unable to secure an in-house data protection supervisor to assist you in your compliance. What you do is you acquire for the services of an accredited institution to assist you in your compliance journey with the Commission. You can also, if you don't want to actually have an in-house data protection supervisor, you can get accredited data protection supervisors. By the end of this year, currently we don't have accreditation for trained data protection supervisors. Very soon, before end of year, data protection supervisors will be given accreditation to practice for other institutions. So they can be data protection supervisors for an institution, but they can also do data protection as a service for other institutions. So you don't acquire the service of another data controller, but you acquire the service of either data protection supervisor or an accredited data protection institution to assist you with your data protection compliance. Then duration of compliance reports. So the Commission requires a compliance report from data controllers every 2 years. In any case, the Commission is looking at reviewing some of this process because for some large data controllers, the rate at which we keep getting complaints, we are looking at going for an amendment of this law so that we can have large data controllers submitting compliance report on annual basis, because the rate of their processing is very high and they process large amount of data. So we are looking at making it annually. Otherwise, it's 2 years for now. And the frequency is, as I mentioned, once every 2 years. But the process of review depends on whether you got it right. Because if your compliance does not meet the standard required by the Commission, we'll have to get back to you to ensure that you put in the necessary things or measures that will secure the personal data that you hold. So that may drag a bit, but your compliance report should not stay with the Commission more than a month, seriously. More than a month, it shouldn't. Then lastly, the question is, how does Data Protection Act compare with the GDPR? Okay, so you want to, Mr. Pentin asked a question earlier as to if the Data Protection Act is not mimicking a Western kind of regulation or culture. Obviously, Act 843 is a derivative of the English law, and GDPR, yes, has some similarities. Of course, it came before the Act 843. However, in 2018, the GDPR was updated. So the GDPR that we know today is not the original. It was updated in 2018, and certain things were changed. But one of the things that I know, the fines in the Data Protection Act are not the same as that of the GDPR. We have 8 principles, they have 7 principles. So there are some differentials in it, but largely the spirit is the same. And it is so for almost all data protection regulations that you will look at. They all have a bit of the GDPR in them. And the tracking of a data breach, I think that's the last question. How do you track a data breach? As a matter of fact, if you are not within the organizational framework, you wouldn't know. You cannot track it until, that is why the law requires in section 31 that where the organization immediately they become aware of the breach, they must notify the Commission and notify the data subject. You on your own as a data subject wouldn't know, unless of course you begin to receive some alerts from unsolicited data controllers, then you know the information you gave to another data controller has been shared with another data controller. At that point, you have every right to take the data controller you gave your information on. You can take them on with the commission, and you also have the right to request from that data controller sharing information with you, how they got the information. You have that is your right. So long as they are holding it, they must demonstrate accountability for it, how they got it, where they got it from, and how they are using it, the purpose for which they collected it. You have the right to request this from them. So
awesome.
That'll be the first batch of questions.
All right, thank you. I think we will have one more question in the studio, and then we'll take a couple online.
Mine is not a question. I think that I want to applaud you for a great presentation. I think I don't know why anybody will miss such a great presentation. And I would also advocate that we have a lot more of such interactions, because it's only by such engagements that we can have compliance. At my last count, I am in manufacturing. At my last count, we had to comply with more than 10 different institutions. Yeah. And I try to list them. We have GRA, obviously, you can't do away. You can't start a business and run a business without them. So GRA, Registrar General, obviously you start with them. Then environmental protection, which takes you so long to get a certificate back to back. By the time you finish getting a certificate, you are ready to start processing another one. Then you need fire, and you need social security, you need factory inspectorate, and then standard board, police clearance that is every 6 months. Then depending on the industry you are in, FDA will also come in. Then local authorities, the assemblies will come in. Now we have the 11th one, that is the data protection. So you can spend so much time just trying to comply. I am not too sure. This is so complicated and very difficult to comply and very costly. Sometimes the cost of getting this will take all your profit away. I am wondering why they make it so complicated and make it difficult for you to even meet up with it. Not that people want to avoid it or don't want it, but the cost and how complicated it is makes you want to pretend as if they are not there, and that you pray and hope that you are not found. If they find you, find some way of making the trouble go. But I wish that, and I'm happy to hear that you said within 1 month. That is, I don't know whether it is 1 month that you can process it. I wish there could be an interesting, simple way of going online, put your name there, what you do, fill it out, send it, and then you receive feedback that yes, it's good, but make sure that you fill in 1, 2, 3 points, you do it and you are done. I wish that we could do that with all these regulators, so it makes it easier for people to want to be friends with GRA, be friends with fire, environmental protection and the like. Otherwise, they will pretend as if they don't exist. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hassan. So I think Mr. Hassan has asked a quadruple-barreled question or contribution. So I suppose that for the purpose of this conversation, you're going to focus on the aspect that relates to the GDPR and the short-circuiting of the time to, getting your license, in place.
So thank you very much. It is true. We admit and appreciate that all these regulators are there for data controllers to actually meet. For our processes, you just go to, I'm giving you a website, www.registration@dataprotection.org.gh, www.registration@dataprotection.org.gh. Registration at dataprotection.org.gh. So this is how you register. When you hit this platform, you create an account. So this account, or whoever creates this account, becomes the contact person between your institution and the commission. So we'll require of you your registration certificate with the registrar of companies. Then we'll take the contact of the individual who is registering and also their email address. Now, we'll require of you, the system will require of you actually, what business, you describe your type of business, the sector that you fall in. Once you do this, it will require your estimated turnover. Say again. That is data.
It is necessary for the business.
No. Let me finish. You'll understand. So your estimated data. Sorry, your estimated turnover, and how much of information you intend to process. There's the number of records that you intend to process, and also the data subject, or if you want, the number of staff that you operate with. Once you key this into the system, it categorizes you as either a small, medium, or a large data controller, and automatically an invoice is generated for you to go and pay. So no, the fee is not based on your turnover. The categorization is what determines, uses your turnover.
Everybody pays the same fee.
So if you're a large data controller, 1,800 for 2 years.
Cedis or dollars?
Cedis, please. 1,800 cedis for 2 years. If you are a medium data controller, 900 cedis for 2 years. And if you're a small data controller, 120 cedis for 2 years.
I'm a small data controller.
Me too.
You see,
Information you are releasing.
All right.
you see, so it is not expensive. And as I've mentioned, once the invoice is generated, it gives you the account into which you should pay it. Once it is paid, you send us the proof of payment through the same registration at dataprotection.org.gh. We'll review it within 21 days. You have your certificate.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Quentin Akroboto, Director, Regulatory and Compliance at the Data Protection Commission. We thank all of you for the active participation online and the questions that you shared in. There was one more question that someone shared online. I think it's important that you clear that part, and it's related, I believe, to what Mr. Appleton had earlier mentioned about the embassy, that there are Facebooks and the Google AWS service and all of those big entities that we have signed up to for social messaging purposes and for business purposes. What is the regulation around that, and how do we know that the integrity of our data is protected?
Okay, so for entities that are not registered in Ghana but processes personal data of Ghanaians, they are expected to register as external companies with the Commission, and we treat them just as any other data controller. They are also supposed to comply with all the 8 principles of data protection. So the Facebooks, the Googles, they are all registered with the Commission. So long as they are processing personal data, they have to.
Okay.
So they are registered with us.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think a round of applause will be appropriate.
And everybody who made this possible. Actually, the Commission appreciates and is very excited when we get the opportunity like this to interact with key and ultimate decision makers like you. We thank you, and we look forward to the opportunity next time. Thank you.
Financial protection for yourself, businesses, and properties remain a few of the major concerns for hardworking people like you. That is exactly why having insurance is so important. Don't we all wish for the ability to keep our expenses at the bare minimum while attaining maximum benefits? This is where KEK as your insurance broker comes in. Unfortunately, there is a common misconception that hiring a broker will drive up your insurance costs. This is just a myth. Let's debunk some of these insurance myths, shall we? 1. You have to pay insurance brokers for their services. That's not true. You do not have to pay any special fees when you use KEK as your insurance broker. Broker fees are fixed in premium quotations, and this is the way it is done all over the world. In fact, we rather work to reduce the premiums you have to pay due to our world-class negotiation skills. 2. You can do a better job managing your insurance. We at KEK Insurance Brokers are specialists who have in-depth understanding of the insurance market. We are experts in the insurance business, and we pass on this extensive knowledge and expertise to the client through competitive pricing, claims management, and the general administration of policies. So get insured today. Let KEK be the one to help you. You can reach us via social media handles or visit our offices at KEK Insurance Broking House, number 40/41 Senchi Street at Aviation Road, Airport Residential Area, Accra.
You're running your business day to day and you're seeing it like this, right? You're looking at all the challenges, the problems, the weaknesses, the competition, and then wake up Seed. You have Seed, and Stanford Seed teaches you to think like that.
You get in and you come out a completely different leader.
It's a program targeted at the founders and leaders of small and medium-sized businesses in developing economies. What they are looking to is, how do I take this to the next level?
We were doing a little under $200,000 a year. Last year we did about $700,000.
We began with one country. Currently we are in 2 countries and we have registered in 6 additional countries.
That's Stanford Seed spirit. You can do anything.
All right, thank you. It's been such a wonderful afternoon, but our day would be incomplete if we do not undertake this particular activity we're just about to do. All of us at a certain point in time heard the gospel of Stanford Seed Transformation Net, the Stanford Seed, and we signed up and went through the program and subsequently became network members. This is an opportunity and there's a clarion call for all of us to try and bring in new members into the next cohort that is coming up. So we're joined on the line this afternoon by Kate Selby, who is a network associate at Stanford Seed. Kate, are you there with us? Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, Eloy. Good afternoon, everyone. A very good evening. Well, a very good afternoon to you, Mr. President, and all our cherished Seed Transformation Network members. And a warm welcome to you, our potential candidates for the Seed Transformation Program who may have joined us online. My name is Kate Selby, as Mr. Amande did say. I have 10 minutes and I'm just going to quickly run through what the Seed Transformation Program is and what we are expecting of you to be able to participate in this program and eventually be an esteemed member of the network of companies from the program. If I may, I would quickly share my screen. Just a moment, please. So I'll get off video mode so I can concentrate on that, please. Thank you. Can you see my screen, please?
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you. Thank you. So very quickly, I would want to talk briefly about who Stanford University is and then what Stanford Seed is. And like I said, give you the opportunity to have an insight into what we are looking for this particular Seed Transformation Program. So Stanford University was founded in 1891. And as we well know it, it's been ranked one of the best universities in the world, and it's located in the Silicon Valley of the United States of America. And if there's anything we know about the Silicon Valley, we also know that most of the very top brands, Google, HP, Yahoo, PayPal, Nike, all of these brands happen to be founded by past students of the Stanford University as well. And one thing we like to say here in Sstn is that if the companies founded by Stanford graduates since 1930 were an independent nation, it would be the 10th largest economy in the world. This means that all of our participants who have been through our program, actually from the Stanford Graduate School of Business, if all of these brands came together, they would form the 10th largest economy in the world. This should tell us a little bit about what kinds of resources come out of Stanford University and how glad we are to be associated with it. So right there in the Graduate School of Business sits Stanford Seed. So what it is that we had our founding donors, Dottie and Bill King, who gave us a huge sum of money sometime in the past and did say they were looking to ending the cycle of global poverty in emerging markets. And this actually happened to be a great gift that the Graduate School of Business took on and thought would be an opportunity to create something that wouldn't just be channeled onto one sector or one country, but would cut across worldwide. So we have Stanford Seed being birthed through the gift given us by the Kings. And so this is our theory of change. We partner with entrepreneurs in emerging markets and transform through high-touch programs, eventually build thriving and socially conscious enterprises. Pardon me. Okay, for the positive impact we're all looking for, and this impact we are looking to having in people, in organizations, and in the world at large. And so Stanford Seed was birthed not just in deprived, as it were, part of the world, but also in, so we can talk of Africa and South Asia. In Stanford Seed, we, through the gifts given us by our donors, we were able to come up with 3 unique programs. We'll be talking into detail about the Stanford Transformation Program, reason why we're here, but I'd like to just briefly touch on SPAC and Aspire. So Aspire would cater to, and as you would see there, companies within Africa with revenues a little bit lower than what we are looking for in the Stanford Transformation Program. So that's from $20,000 US dollars to about $300,000 US dollars. And then SPAC is more geared towards, you know, early startups and those who are actually now trying to find a market fit in all of those. So despite the fact that our program is catered to take care of businesses within the minimum range of, within the revenue range of $300,000 and $15 million, we still make provision for others who are striving to attain this bracket. Being Stanford actually helps to add value for SMEs, and Stanford is doing this decades over and ensuring that its long-lasting history, right from school, from the university, is spilled over to most of our innovators, our investors, and everybody that is business-minded within our space in the world. So the Sea Transformation Program, like I mentioned earlier, is it caters to entrepreneurs in Africa and in Asia, and it's made up of established businesses who are already doing well in their fields. Yes, we are happy that businesses like to grow, but we're looking for those who are looking to drastically change in what their organizations are currently going through. And so when you talk to any of these business leaders you see in the room right there, and those who are part of our network, you would hear such amazing stories as from where they came and where they have gotten to now. And they will tell you this is not the end, because they're still looking to transforming. And you will hear a lot about the word transforming in our program, because that's ultimately what we're looking to having our companies do. Now, what's in essence is the Sea Transformation Program. So we have a commitment from you, our business leaders who get into the program eventually, to look forward to a 10-month program, which would run from January to November. So we're recruiting at the moment for the cohort of the 14th cohort, which would start the class in January 2024 and end in November 2024. Now, this format, and thanks to thanks to COVID, I would say, has given us the chance to see things in a different light. So we're having, initially, it was a fully in-person program, but now it's blended. So we moved from the full in-person program to, during COVID, virtual programs. And so Mr. Amande, for example, would tell you he never had an in-person meeting. He probably never met any of his cohort members until he was graduating from the program eventually. And
yes. I told you at the last meeting. Yeah, Shaibu and I just met at graduation day.
So, hello?
Sorry, Kate, go ahead, please.
Okay, sorry, I'm not seeing any of you, so sorry about that. Yeah, so Mr. Amande never met any of his colleagues, his cohort members, until he had to go through commencement, and that was back in Nigeria, and probably met all of them and was excited to see them. But that was the beauty of COVID at the time, and he's still doing great in his business. Now we have shifted to a blended approach, which is more like a hybrid one, and so we'll have two sessions. Our program is in 4 parts, and with time you would see that. And we have 2 sessions in January and in June in person. So these will be in-person sessions either in Nairobi, Kenya, or in Accra, Ghana. The second and the fourth parts would be virtual. So everything will be done online. And we're asking of you to give us 5 to 8 hours of your time weekly as a business leader. And of course, there are a few times you would have, well, maybe 80% of the time that you would have your management teams join you, and you'll understand why we allow for the team to be a part of this as well. So moving right into the criteria. Okay, I should take this first. So the program, as I said, is in 4 parts. And in part 1, you'd be having sessions with your faculty right from the Stanford Graduate School of Business. And this is an in-person aspect of the program where you'd be treating topics on strategy, organizational design, leadership, and business model canvas. In part 3, which will also be in person, you'll be having in-person faculty sessions on topics such as product innovation, design thinking, etc., as you see on your screen. Now in part 2 and in part 4, as already explained, these would be virtual, and you would still have the chance to have faculty sessions on these topics. So in part 2, accounting, value chain innovations. In part 4, human resource and governance, etc. Beyond, pardon me. So over the 10 months that you and your senior managers would be with us in the program, we would, together with your business transformation advisors, who are actually put in place to water down the lessons you've had from your faculty. So beyond that, those 1 week each sessions in January and in June, you'd have your business transformation advisors come into your organizations and work together with you and your business, your leadership teams, to water down everything that was learned in the program. So you are not really leaving anybody behind, because transformation and the whole mindset would need a whole body, would need a whole team to be able to rally behind you. And that's what we look at in Seed. We just do not want to have you evolve, or we want your teams as well to evolve with you. And so the program, like I said, would be part in person and then part online. And over that period, you will have high touch exposure with our faculty from Stanford University. Now, for the key benefits of the program, I'm sure you'd be wondering why you should be a part of this. Basically, we are looking to developing you, your skills, your tools, your mindset, and help you grow and scale your businesses and positively impact your communities. If we are not going to do the impact, going to look at transformation, then maybe this is not the good fit for you. Maybe you should be looking to another program, because our faculty and our curriculum are designed to change your mindset and to give you something better to look forward to, not just the next step, not just the next day, but way ahead, and how far impacting you and your organization can be. Once you would see, let me go down to, okay. I had wanted to show you into detail what your 4 parts of the program would be, because at the end of the day, you'd have the chance to develop what we call a transformation plan. And this is what you're going to run with beyond the program. You're going to probably be looking back at this transformation plan in a number of years to come, and you realize that this was doable. And all of these, everything that's going to be put in the transformation plan is what you're going to work on while in the program. You're working on this together with what faculty is teaching you and what your business transformation advisors are helping you with. In addition to, and I'll come to that a little bit later, the resources that we would extend to you from Stanford University, which include coaches, consultants, and interns. I would just quickly, I realize my time is almost up, so I would quickly, yes, I have touched on this, the benefits and the fact that you also have your team engagement, so you're able to bring your management team along with you on this journey, and then you have we customize for you and your company things that would be able to help you participate both in person and online workshops, etc., etc. So you see right here, it's not just you, it's not just your management team, but it's also your team. Okay, so the outcome of the program, like I said, we're looking to helping you transform as a leader. We want your senior management team to also transform. We want your business to grow, and we want your community to be impacted by whatever lessons you have learned from the program. Now, after the program, you'll be given a certificate, a beautiful certificate from the Graduate School of Business. As you would see, it will be signed by your faculty director, and it would also be signed by your regional director. I should go retract a little bit and say that, like I said, in regions, we do have in Africa, West Africa, South Africa, and East Africa. And the amazing thing to note is that right from this current cohort that's in class and moving forward, we have decided to have a Pan-African class. So we have 120 business leaders in the class together, a couple of them from East Africa, Southern Africa, and from West Africa. So that synergy already, and the exposure you would have to the people in your class, especially knowing that they're all from different industries. We are not too industry specific. We allow for a wide range of them to come in. So having the exposure of all of these caliber of persons in your class, and then afterwards getting the opportunity to join what we call the C Transformation Network. Imagine what amazing benefits you may have right from there. So after the program, after your 10-month program, you graduate and you have the opportunity to become a part of a network that's made up of like-minded business leaders. So all the leaders we see in the room tonight all are members of this network. And we have almost 1,000 business leaders who've been through our program. You'd see right on your screens the breakdown. In West Africa, quite a number of them, of course, Nigeria taking the lead, and then Ghana strongly behind. And more, I should say that we're trying to push to get more business leaders from countries which have low representation as of now. So as I speak with you, I'm just coming out of an information session. I'm in Cote d'Ivoire. I had to come do this session with them because we're looking to have more business leaders from this part of the world get into the program as well. So it will be all inclusive, and then you have a wider range of a community to actually interact with. And then you also have the chance to interact with all of the other business leaders from Southern Asia, South Africa, East Africa. Like I said earlier, it's not industry to industry specific. So you have about 48% of persons in the tech space, and you see the breakdown with health, services, education, wide range, a wide community of people you are being exposed to. And when it comes to gender, we are constantly looking to increasing the number of female business leaders. And so we have incentives for our female business leaders. If you're on the call and you're a female business leader, you definitely have a chance. Well, maybe over the gentlemen, but a fair playing ground certainly to be able to get onto the program. And the benefits I had spoken to earlier, I'm told my time is up, so I'll just quickly round this up. In the network, you have access to coaches, consultants, and interns, virtually all subsidized. Well, consultants is a free service, a free resource you'd have. Interns highly subsidized. You're only paying a commitment fee of $600. And coaches, very, very highly subsidized. I mean, you're paying very little to be able to access coaches from Stanford. And these people are working with you throughout the journey because, as we say in Seed, we do not want to leave you on your own after the program. We continue to walk with you, and the journey doesn't stop after the program. It gets you into this network of beautiful business leaders to continue the transformation program. I would just touch briefly on the impact. So we have 75% of our businesses after the program reporting to us that they have actually increased revenue. And in total, out of our almost 1,000 business leaders, we have $2.6 billion raised in revenue, and 34% of them have expanded their businesses into newer territories. And so some came into the program with their businesses just in Ghana, and now will tell you they are in Nigeria, they are in Liberia, they are all over the place because of what Seed has been able to provide to them, and of course, due to their hard work as well. And this for me is most impressive because eventually, once out of the program, you're able to connect and collaborate with other business leaders, not just in Africa, but in Southern Asia. And beyond that, you have connections even from them to other parts of the world. So this exposes you to that community. I'm still being prompted, my time is up, but this is very crucial. I'm sure this is what you're all waiting for, why who we're looking for to join the program. And I would direct you to a link I will drop in the chat to enable you gain more access, but very, very basic is your revenue range, and you should be a key decision maker. Because if you need to transform, your voice needs to be one that is already being heard, and so would be able to reach far and transform the business. So this, you'd see, is the criteria. And then our deadline, very importantly, is the 15th of May for you to apply. I'll drop that link in the chat as well, so you are able to click on that and apply. In fact, just before I leave, I'll leave this up here so you can scan it very quickly and takes you straight to our landing page. And thank you for your time. Thank you very much, Mr. President and team as well. And we hope to see you, our potential candidates, send in your applications and eventually get into the program. Thank you once again.
Financial protection for yourself, businesses, and properties remain a few of the major concerns for hardworking people like you. That is exactly why having insurance is so important. Don't we all wish for the ability to keep our expenses at the bare minimum while attaining maximum benefits? This is where KEK as your insurance broker comes in. Unfortunately, there is a common misconception that hiring a broker will drive up your insurance costs. This is just a myth. Let's debunk some of these insurance myths, shall we? 1. You have to pay insurance brokers for their services. That's not true. You do not have to pay any special fees when you use KEK as your insurance broker. Broker fees are fixed in premium quotations, and this is the way it is done all over the world. In fact, we rather work to reduce the premiums you have to pay due to our world-class negotiation skills. 2. You can do a better job managing your insurance. We at KEK Insurance Brokers are specialists who have in-depth understanding of the insurance market. We are experts in the insurance business, and we pass on this extensive knowledge and expertise to the client through competitive pricing, claims management, and the general administration of policies. So get insured today. Let KEK be the one to help you. You can reach us via social media handles or visit our offices at KEK Insurance Broking House, number 40/41 Senchi Street at Aviation Road, Airport Residential Area, Accra.
Give me 20 liters of fuel. Voila! There it is. 20 liters has been added to my tank. Triple confirmation on my odometer, the receipt, and on my app. And Soma GPS tracking service is able to alert you on dangerous driving incidents. And here is how.
All right, so thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience and sticking through the whole program all afternoon. We like to say thank you for making yourselves available for this, and also to the GDPC for coming through and doing this with us. We hope we have been equipped, and the session will serve the purpose for which the planners and architects of it had in mind, for that we'll get the tools to be able to build businesses that are transformational and take us to the next level. God bless you all. Have a great evening, and we will see you when we do see you. We started with a prayer, so I think it's appropriate that we end with a prayer. Mr. President, would you do us the honors? Oh, okay, I'll do it. Father in heaven, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for the opportunity to sit around the table and discuss this potential banana peel on our journey to transform businesses. We thank you for everything that you do for us. We are hopeful that we will be able to go through this year, this period that our businesses find ourselves in, despite the economic situation that we are operating in. We will be able to find our feet and advance our businesses to where it is supposed to be. We thank you for this and many other things. In Jesus' name we've prayed. Amen.
Amen. We were growing at a tremendous pace, and we didn't know which road we needed to take.
Stanford Seed opened up the eyes to a bigger, larger vision.
What the Seed Transformation Program does is to make small and medium businesses dream bigger.
The Seed Transformation Program is a program targeted at the founders and leaders of small and medium-sized businesses in developing economies. What they are looking to is, how do I take this to the next level?
The last 1 year, we've grown 300%.
Interacting with the best thinking in the world.
It really brought everyone together and have one single focus and goal, and it really quickened the process of our journey towards where we are heading.
I truly believe that all aspiring entrepreneurs in Botswana need to look to the rest of the continent for opportunities to grow their businesses. Seed forces you to look outside. Seed forces you to see the bigger picture.
Seed offers you a whole bunch of resources. You have access to coaches, you have access to consultants, you have access to interns.
You get to meet different people with different views, different concepts, different ideas.
The Seed Transformation Program is a program targeted at the founders and leaders of small and medium-sized businesses in developing economies. What they are looking to is, how do I take this to the next level?
It was specific to your business. You could immediately come back to your company and implement it.
De Beers sponsoring the Seed program is helping foster and develop up-and-coming businesses that have the opportunity to transform the region. I don't think you could get a greater gift than that.
You're running your business day to day and you're seeing it like this, right? You're looking at all the challenges, the problems, the weaknesses, the competition, and then wake up Seed. You have Seed, and Stanford Seed teaches you to think like that.
You get in and you come out a completely different leader.
It's a program targeted at the founders and leaders of small and medium-sized businesses in developing economies. What they are looking to is, how do I take this to the next level?
We were doing a little under $200,000 a year. Last year we did about $700,000.
We began with one country. Currently, we are in 2 countries and we have registered in 6 additional countries.
That's Stanford Seed spirit. You can do anything.
Financial protection for yourself, businesses, and properties remain a few of the major concerns for hardworking people like you. That is exactly why having insurance is so important. Don't we all wish for the ability to keep our expenses at the bare minimum while attaining maximum benefits? This is where KEK as your insurance broker comes in. Unfortunately, there is a common misconception that hiring a broker will drive up your insurance costs. This is just a myth. Let's debunk some of these insurance myths, shall we? 1. You have to pay insurance brokers for their services. That's not true. You do not have to pay any special fees when you use KEK as your insurance broker. Broker fees are fixed in premium quotations, and this is the way it is done all over the world. In fact, we rather work to reduce the premiums you have to pay due to our world-class negotiation skills. 2. You can do a better job managing your insurance. We at KEK Insurance Brokers are specialists who have in-depth understanding of the insurance market. We are experts in the insurance business, and we pass on this extensive knowledge and expertise to the client through competitive pricing, claims management, and the general administration of policies. So get insured today. Let KEK be the one to help you. You can reach us via social media handles or visit our offices at KEK Insurance Broking House, number 40/41 Sentry Street at Aviation Road, Airport Residential Area, Accra.
Give me 20 liters of fuel. Voila! There it is. 20 liters has been added to my tank. Triple confirmation on my odometer, the receipt, and on my app. And Soma GPS tracking service is able to alert you on dangerous driving incidents. And here is how.